Good evening.
Panguli is not present. Graham Hudak.
Good evening.
Slavens.
Good evening.
Snyderman.
I am here.
And Segrist is also in
Great, thanks. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Great. So, I guess we can adopt the agenda. Motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll support it.
Supported by. All
Yeah.
those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed,
Aye.
nay. Motion passes. All right, today's study session is on the Canton Township Fire Department 2024 5-year strategic plan. And we will start off with Chief Chris Stockwell.
Well, thank you, and welcome for those of you that are watching. Just wanted to start out by saying that I got the best staff, and I got Jamie Strasner as our deputy chief, and Erica Crackle as our business operations coordinator. Honestly, they've put all this together. Here that put it all together for us. So with that being said, we'll jump into this, and I sent you the strategic plan so you could kind of go over it prior to the meeting. So hopefully you had a chance to read through it and kind of gather your questions so that we can keep this on the shorter side for you guys tonight, because we don't want to go over all, 57 pages of the book. But at any rate, we'll get started on this. And just saying again, I can't thank them enough for the work that they do day in and day out. This was a 6-month, really almost 8-month now, plan that we were working on as we brought in, external stakeholders. And I know a few of you were on that board. We pulled the external stakeholders. Supervisor, we appreciate you getting some more input from outside sources that we wouldn't have connections to. So that was wonderful to get them on the stakeholders and get their input on this as well. So we pulled the stakeholders. We got some input from them, positive and negative, and you'll see that in the strategic plan. And from there, we kind of identified those concerns and then moved on to the internal stakeholders, which is really the firefighters and ourselves, looking to see where we can improve, what kind of things we can do, doing a SWOT analysis of our threats and opportunities, all those things, right? And then kind of putting that into the works here. But I'll let Jamie touch on it a little bit more.
Yeah, just to reiterate a lot of what the chief had mentioned, I would consider it like just a great experience that we had in this, because if you read through this document, and I know Trustee Steinman mentioned that you did, so you must have seen in this document several times that this is a community-driven plan, which is, there's a reason why you read that so many times in there, because we want to highlight that, because that's one of the cornerstones of this document, that this thing is community-driven. It's not, deputy chief or a fire chief plan. We needed input from internal and external stakeholders. Sometimes, though, the message that we got, even from the internal stakeholders, wasn't all that pleasant. But that's part of the process, that we have to understand that there's problems and we want to try and solve them. So as the chief mentioned, we pulled the internal stakeholders, got some good feedback. But when you poll somebody and you're asking for them to just, send this document back, you don't always get a ton of great feedback. Meaning, I don't know, they weren't thinking about strategic planning when they got this message that said, hey, fill this thing out. So it was just whatever was in their head. So we like to have a little pre-plan, maybe, where we say, hey, look, these are the kind of things we're looking for. You guys think about this, and then when we meet, we can actually have a positive discussion. So that happened, and then we kind of let the internal stakeholders stew on that for a while. And then we started meeting with the external stakeholders, and that was late November. Those meetings were great. As this slide talks about, the first thing that we have to do when we do that is to define the programs to the external stakeholders. Because what we found is, and I did hear that some of this feedback early on, was, well, Jamie, I'd really like to help you, but I don't know that much about firefighting. So how can we really help you with this strategic plan? Come to the meeting. We'll tell you all about our programs. We'll tell you all about our issues and ask for your feedback on just what you want to see, right? What do you want to see from the fire department? And they did that. They did great. And all that feedback is in the appendix of this document. So they really did. We identified a lot of their concerns, and I feel like everything that's in this strategic plan is tied to, number one, it's tied to one of the township strategic plan goals, and it also answers directly what the internal and external stakeholders mentioned. That's really important for us. So after we had that meeting, we then met internally again, and this was face-to-face. This wasn't over polling. And that's when we sat down and actually started writing the strategic initiatives. And we came up with 4 of them. You'll see them in a moment. The 4 strategic initiatives then have goals. And then underneath the goals are objectives, and there's critical tasks. It kind of really flows nice. But again, like the fire chief mentioned to me when we were going through this, he's like, so 1.1.1.2, right? It gets a little confusing there, but it's okay. That's the way we want it to be, because we want to be able to, highlight and zero in on a lot of these objectives. So that's really how the planning outline thing kind of happened. The decision-making model, this again is also right out of the strategic plan, and this really kind of captivates in one slide like how we came about this. So we took the community expectations, our own professional expertise, and then a lot of data, and then trying to determine, hey, what it is, what can we accomplish, and is it going to meet the needs of the organization and the expectations from the public. So that's why we threw this decision-making model in there. So it just kind of pulls it all together. All right, so we can go right into the strategic initiatives. The first one that I'll touch on. There's a lot of goals there, and I'll kind of touch on some of them. But the first strategic initiative is to deliver quality core programs. And I think any agency out there wants to do this, right? That's the core things. We want to be really, really good at fire suppression. We really want to be good at EMS. We want to be good at emergency management. These are our core things that we do. So when we're talking about strategic planning, though, it's one thing to just say, well, hey, we want to be better at EMS. And we do say that every year. But also every year, we also come up with outcomes that we're looking for, that we're trying to measure. We have to have an outcome. And we identify those outcomes in our annual appraisal documents. And these are all also listed online. They're all on the website. So that's, again, that transparency thing that we're always trying to harness. But in those appraisal documents, we talk about outcomes. And it could be something, it's usually not something different every year, but it could be something, we want to improve cardiac care by 30% over what we did this last year. That's a measurable thing that we can do. That's really what Goal 1.1 talks about. It's a lot of performance gap analysis, and this is really a lot of accreditation standards that we try and follow. So Goal 1.1, there's a lot of objectives in there, and they're all aimed at basically identifying performance gaps and coming up with ways to improve those. Goal 1.2 then moves on into EMS and how we're going to improve the EMS system of that core program. And one thing that we know that we have here in the township is a lot of extended care facilities. There was a lot of discussion during our meetings about extended care facilities and how they impact the organization. And that is definitely part of that goal. There's a lot of critical tasking in there that talks about, defining reporting that really says, hey, we're going to have this new extended care facility move into the township. This is what it's going to impact the fire department. It's going to be this many more runs. And we can actually, if we work on it hard enough and we can, peel that onion layer back hard enough, we can dial it down to like cost and figure out really, how much extra is it going to cost us to handle issues at extended care facilities. One of the other components of 1.2, and this also goes back to what we were talking about when we had the external stakeholders in, was that they wanted us to grow as the township grows. That was an important concept that came out of those meetings. And it kind of resonated with me a little bit because I'm like all about that. That's fantastic. We mentioned that to the internal stakeholders, and they were also very excited on that. And when I looked at that, I thought one perfect way that we could do that is to strategically plan as we continue to grow, as the township continues to grow, that our administration also has to grow at the same point. So having an EMS chief, meaning an administrative position that would be in charge of EMS licensing, of EMS training, of CQI, of quality control, would probably be the next logical step in the evolution of the administration. The bigger we get and the more ambulances we put on the road, the more challenging it's going to be to keep coming up with that. So that also is going to be in goal 1.2.
If I could just add one thing to that. It's important for me, like as I was looking through these goals, to make sure that as we look at like 1.2, right, staffing studies and all these things that go along with it, I'm not coming in and asking for staffing if I don't have justification for it, right? And so that's part of this goal, is justifying what we need in the EMS system to show you why I'm asking for what I'm asking for. So that's a big part of these goals too, is that we're going to be able to prove these things to you as we come and ask for them, whether it's, assets or personnel or whatever it may be. This is part of the goals that we're producing here.
1.3 and 1.4 are both aimed at dispatch, and 1.3 talks about the emergency dispatch program. You guys should know that. I think we talked about a lot that we use priority.
Medical dispatch.
Emergency medical dispatching, and it's pro QA. So they ask specific questions when someone calls 911 to get them the medical help that they need. There's a big review process that needs to happen with this, and it's a performance gap for us that we're not always attaining what we need to do. So we wanted to put that in there, develop a committee that we once had in place and kind of fell off by the wayside. So we want to ramp that back up and start listening to more calls. 1.4 talks about the accreditation process. I think everyone in this room can definitely speak to the positivity, the good things that can come from an accreditation process. And there is a process out there for dispatch rooms. And we're going to investigate that and see what we can do to make that happen.
That doesn't come under your general accreditation?
There's a component to it, but it's just a slight one. It's kind of like there's an ambulance accreditation out there as well, too. It's the community, I can't remember what it is now. I just know it's called CAS.
Yeah.
But it's the same type of thing. There's a small little branch, but this is more focused.
The dispatchers won't be happy with us.
No, I snuck it in there. Emergency management, can't say enough about what Will Hayes does for us, right, through emergency management. But there's also a couple goals in there about just ensuring that we are meeting the needs, again, of the potential issues that we have in the township. We recently just did that big tabletop exercise. I know a lot of you guys were a part of that. It was maybe even last year, just before we had that big event, right? And there's more of those in the strategic plan that we want to have happen. And then 1.6, this one is talking a lot about community risk reduction. And hopefully you guys have heard or seen on the website or through Facebook that I'll talk about momentarily, but the smoke detector installation program that we have going on. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in there because, again, that's a measurable outcome that we're looking to harness some technology to help us do. We know that, obviously we know that no smoke detectors in a home during house fires could be lethal. It's very bad. And how do we know, because that's the first thing people ask me is, Jamie, how do you know that you have a smoke detector problem in Canton Township? It's like, I know because statistically we know this, but we want to poll people and the public to see if our idea of smoke detectors is accurate. Do people have working smoke detectors on all their floors? Right? I mean, that's a legitimate question, and I'm assuming most people would answer that they do. I'm expecting them to, but that's the way we're going to be able to target the audiences that we need to hammer the smoke detector installation program with. So,
And some of this data is available through the state fire marshal. So every time that we have a fatal or we have an injury on scene, like we're reporting that to the state fire marshal, and they're keeping track of that data. So we can go on, and I can tell you, like, hey, where's the number one, fatality? It's a over 50-year-old male living by themselves. They're dying by the front door on the way out of the fire, right? I mean, we can pull this data, and we know this data, but we want to make it specific to Canton Township as we move forward, so that we're meeting the goals of our township, not the goals of the state as a whole.
Yes. We can talk about the strategic initiative number 2. So now we're off of 1, and we moved right into doing a much better job at communication, right? This has got to be in everybody's strategic plan ever, probably, and I think it fits for us as well. I mean, we heard it from the external candidate, from the external feedback, and we definitely heard it from the internal feedback. I feel like since we started this in November, we kind of started to see what was coming, so we started to make movements and changes now, and hopefully you guys might have seen some of these things with how active we are on Facebook right now, how the township website looks. I mean, it's a lot different. It's a lot better. And I was mentioning it to these guys earlier when we were talking about this, that one of the more exciting things that I get to ask somebody when they're a potential candidate to come in and work and we're doing interviews, we ask them, what have you learned about Canton Township? And they say, well, I looked at your guys' website and it's got this and that and this and that. And I'm like, top of the list, right? You're doing good so far. That's what we're looking for, because that's what we want it to be. We want to be as transparent as we can be, and we really want to get the information out, because that is what we took from the external feedback, right? We don't know what you guys are doing. Get in the focus, get out there, right? So that's definitely something that we want to do. And then finally, 2.2, I'm going to roll back to our appraisal process, and our annual appraisal process is not just an annual report. This is something that, again, we want to take a look at what we did the last year and was it effective or not, and then have someone else look at it besides us. Have the fire chief review it, have them sign off on it, put it online so they can see it. And that way we have a roadmap, and that way we know what's working and what's not working. So that's really a lot of what the communication is. Just we need to be better.
So on strategic initiative number 3, this is really about development of our workforce and building the culture in the Canton Fire Department. We know we have a diversity problem, right? And we know that we want to develop our workforce to be ready to deal with multicultural households, right? And that was one of the conversations I had with Trustee Ganguly today. How do we do the the language barriers? How do we deal with language barriers? How do we incorporate CCIC, right? I mean, these are all things that need to be addressed as the workforce. We know we can't go out and, because of our requirements, not everybody, and it's like Trustee said today, not every Indian culture wants to be a firefighter, right? But we can certainly look at different aspects of our department to say, hey, maybe we can't diversify ourselves through firefighting, but hey, maybe we can, end up having a drone program, right? That we can have pilots, right, that are trained in maybe different cultures, right? And so there's all kinds of ideas that we were throwing around, and this just puts it on the paper so that we're going to make sure that we're looking at those kind of ideas, right?
You've also used outside organizations, I know, over the years too. Some of the grassroots organizations have helped going to homes and help with situations. I know that. So that's something to continue also.
All of them, right? And so by putting this down on paper and making them goals, it's going to force us to look at it and force us to answer those questions as we move forward. 3.2 is going after safer money, staffing levels. Like I said before, we're not going to come before you and make suggestions unless we have data to back that up. So this is part of that goal, is making sure that after we build the station, right, and we staff it, that we step back for a while, we look at our operations, we make sure that we're operating where we need to be operating, and if we're staffed well, then that's what you're going to hear out of my mouth. If we're staffed below level, that's what you're going to hear out of my mouth. And we'll figure out ways of coming up with funding for that, right? As we're working on quite a few things, as you already know about with the GEMT, medical transport, all those things. So this is all part of that, making sure that we're meeting those standards and looking after those grants and those recruiting efforts. Moving into 3.3, same thing, right? Retention, recruitment, onboarding of our new personnel. We know we need to revamp that. It's been quite a few years since we've looked at that. We're going to encourage credentialing. 3.4, we're talking about higher education. Deputy supervisor, we were fortunate enough to get in the contract that we have some payment for higher education, right? And that's a big step forward for the fire department because we need to look at these succession planning in the fire department, right? We need to make sure that people are trained up. And this is one step moving in the right direction to make sure that they're getting their education and they can step into these positions, right? And then the final thing at 3.5, making sure that our workforce, is physically ready, mentally ready, and we're going to do annual appraisals on that. With that being said, we've made a lot of strides in those fields over the past couple of years, some that you probably don't even know about as far as, you know that we had that grant and we had done physicals for all the firefighters. That grant is now expired, but we had put it into the budget because we knew that that grant was expiring, so that's going to continue. So that's a great thing that's moving forward in the fire department. Along with that, we've also brought in a physical trainer to the fire department. And so through the training fund, we're able to bring him in once a month, and he goes over workout programs with the firefighters to keep their physical agility up and make sure that they're getting that attention that they need. At the same time, we're working on the mental side of things. The state is offering funding for mental health classes, so we're looking into those. We also have our peer physical team or peer mental team that will come in after high stress incidents, and they are about 6 years now. Would you say 6 years in operations? And we're learning every day, right? But that's really something that we have tried to stay out of as much as possible from an administrative side and make sure that the firefighters have the tools that they need to deal with, PTSD and things that come along with the job. So with that being said, we want to continue to look at that and make sure that they're getting the tools that they need. Psychiatrists, psychologists that are available to them, all those things that, firefighters see that we should never see. We want to make sure that our troops are, ready to come back to work, right? And make sure that they're ready to deal with those situations. So. And then, initiative number 4, it's really, Jamie says, hey, this is all you. You're the one always going to ask for money, so you should really talk about this. So, so this is where I ended up with. But a lot of this stuff is, the great thing is we're already in the process of doing most of this stuff, right? The fire station's already, pretty well funded, right? Or should be mostly funded, right? We're working on the geothermal through that system, solar panels, all those things on acquisition. Our training tower, we've had some conversations about that, but we put it in here just so that we keep it on the radar and we can kind of investigate to see if maybe there's options of doing regional, right? Maybe we team up with Westland and Wayne and some of those others that don't have training towers, right? And we can reduce the cost on that down the road. But it's just something that, it's no different than Station 4 that was in our last strategic plan, something that we need to keep an eye on and make sure that as we grow, right, we're going to be close to 100 firefighters by the time this fire station's done. We have to have a place to train those firefighters and make sure that they're safe, right? So something on the radar for down the road to keep that process moving forward. The acquisition of these the vehicles. If you get to the back of this, you'll see in the one chart where we kind of have it laid out, and it might be a little confusing to you, but second to last page there, it kind of lays out our apparatus that we're going to be purchasing in the future, or that's needed, that will be coming to you to ask for to purchase. And so we work with Fleet on this, and we set out the NFPA standards of how long a vehicle will last, the cost of these vehicles. We get a lot of wear and tear, like our ambulances that are only a year old. We're already at 50,000 miles on these ambulances, right? So we're working them, and we usually keep them in service for about 10 years. So, you'll see where this is laid out, and with the way that service model is right now, or we're ordering these vehicles 2 years in advance to even get them. The ones that we've ordered 2.5 years ago, we still don't have in our possession. So that's kind of where you see that bar graph kind of stretched out prior to where we need that actual purchase done. But we'll probably be coming to ask you for those purchases prior to the year that we need it. Just and we'll watch the way that the automakers are producing their vehicles. And then on top of that, we've got CIP plans that we work with, maintenance with, and the majority of our stuff is already in the capital improvement plans. So that's a goal that, we started a couple years ago, and we wanted to keep this in here, so make sure that we're working towards that goal. And then equipment, these wear out. This is nothing more than, hose and axes and saws and, whatever's on the fire engines and the ambulances. That's just the equipment that we constantly monitor. Jamie's got programs on that to watch that, and if we need to go through records management, we kind of keep track of all that stuff as we go forward. And the final goal up there is the airspace link that we've been working on, really. So we want to continue to look at that. Jamie's not fully on board with that yet, but we're working on them. So, but we had a great meeting today, and I think that there's some promising things that can come out of this, and also a big reduction in our liability of running these vehicles down the road. So we're going to continue to work on that and look at the options of that. And then one more thing that didn't make it, but we're kind of still working on it, but we're kind of going to add this into this acquisition area physical resources is Opticon, and that's a signal GPS system that would be installed into the fire engines. And we're working on a regional grant right now with that through Western Wayne County to try and get that funded. I've talked to this deputy supervisor about that a few times, but basically what it does is as our fire engines and fire trucks roll down the road, it will turn the lights green prior to us getting there. So it really reduces our liability, stops all the traffic ahead of time, two intersections up. And it's not cheap. It's probably somewhere in the cost range of $2 million for the township, $2.5 million for the township. So that would be to outfit all the fire vehicles and police vehicles. But if we can get this grant through Western Wayne, I think that's going to be a great thing as we move forward too. Those are all things that, just something to keep in mind. I mean, this is a working document, right? And so we're going to be changing this as we go. For accreditation, we need to have you really, accept it and kind of see our vision with it. With that, I'll let Jamie talk a little bit about our pathway to the success here, and then we'll finish it up for you for questions.
Yeah, this one really just kind of wraps it all up, but remember that the way we're approaching this is a foundational document that is going to be annually looked at, changed as other environmental scans take place. So there could be something that we're all excited about right now that may turn out to not be relevant later. We need to be aware of that. So that's really what this pathway to success slide is about. This is what's on the screen right now and what's in the back of the document is just a quick little snippet of what one of the strategic plan report cards, if you will, would look like. So we're going to have this document finalized at least annually, hopefully before February 15th, and it'll get sent to the board, anyone that worked on the project or through the process. We'll have it on the website. We'll have it everywhere. I think that's what the important thing is, that this pathway to success page talks about how we're going to be transparent and how we're going to follow up and hold ourselves accountable to ensure that the things that are in this document take place, because otherwise it's just a cool book, right? If we don't have some sort of measure, then it's not really going to do much for us. One of the things that I thought was really good though, and that we always don't get a chance to do, especially post-pandemic, is have the ability to talk with the external stakeholders. We just don't get a chance to do that all that often, and we didn't in the past. So even if you know, I know we're going to be super successful with these plans because we designed them smart and so things that we could definitely achieve with your guys' help, of course. But we know though that one of the bigger successes of this is just getting everyone's feedback, right? Building that cohesive team environment from internal to external stakeholders. The pathway to success is really just us following through on that. This document, of course, like I said, this is just for objective 1.1.1. And I know that I go on my tangent of numbers, but that's just what this is. And it's going to have a timeline. It's going to say where we're at. It's going to have a percentage. It's going to have a status of where it's at. And then if there's an issue with it or feedback that we have, well, we couldn't do this because of that, or this is partially successful, that's where we're going to do the communication so that our internal stakeholders can see what's happening, our external stakeholders can see what's happening, and then we can also keep track of it as well. That's really the purpose of this last page, and the pathway is there. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, I'll just, I'll end it with that, right? The whole idea of this is to build trust, right? It's to build trust with you. It's to build trust with the community. It's to build trust with the firefighters that we can stand here and we can show you what we have in store and what we have planned. And like you said, holding ourselves accountable. It's not easy to put out in public all of our weaknesses and all of our threats and show that to everyone. But with that being said, you know, we also have a feeling that we can address these issues, right? We may not be able to address every single issue. But we can address a lot of these issues. And we've already worked on a lot of these issues, even with the contract being settled compared to 3 weeks ago, right? A lot of this stuff is already taking place, right? We're already eliminating a lot of our weaknesses. We're already eliminating a lot of our threats. And they just will continue to go that way because of the teamwork that we have and the support from you guys. So with that being said, we're happy to take any questions, and I know I dumped a lot of information on you quickly, but we don't want to keep you here till 11 o'clock at night either.
Good.
So, Jamie, if Jamie keeps talking about strategic plans and about accreditation, we'll be here till February.
It's true.
Yes, so first of all, just wanted to make sure everyone knew that I think the main thing that came out of the external stakeholder meetings was that people really love the Canton Fire Department. I think that was very evident, and I think we all do too. And I think one other big topic was that the community doesn't know necessarily all the different things that the fire department does. And I've noticed a few posts like outlining some of those things like the smoke detector installations and equipment rental or equipment loans. Things like that. So I think that's really important because when I think the broader community thinks about a fire department, they just think about either EMS or there's a fire at my house. And you do a lot more than that. I did notice something, I think in the internal stakeholders feedback that was about maternity leaves, and I was wondering if you could just explain that a little bit.
So I will just touch on that. That was one of the comments that came in when there was some confusion as to how we were going to administer the new township-wide, leave policy. So we had not had real clear communication, and they weren't very clear on how we were going to administer that. At this point now, I believe everybody's been crystal clear on that, so shouldn't be an issue anymore.
Good.
But yes, it's a benefit to them that they can use their sick time for maternal
Okay. What about paternity leave?
leave, maternity.
Paternity also, or no?
Mhm.
Okay. And then I just happened to notice as I was reading through, and I could be wrong on this, but it looked to me like all the women who are firefighters are on green shift. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, minus our fire inspector.
Right.
Right, the firefighters.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I just thought that was interesting. Maybe something to think about.
Yeah.
And then finally, I just wanted to say, the process to me reminded me of things that we did in education, school improvement plans and strategic plans there, and we always talked about continuous improvement. And so, yes, I totally agree. It's a living document and will be continually worked on, and always hoping for becoming better and better.
Our goal as well.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your department for putting in such great work, and everyone, all the stakeholders, those of you on the board and in the community that did the same. You're constantly trying to improve the best fire department in the state and maybe the country. I would say so. So I think that I commend you for that. And I got the answer to my question. The end was a little scary because there were some really big numbers at the end. So it was a bit of a thriller. But a couple of questions I had when I was listening to it. One thing I was thinking about when you talked about communications and utilizing social media. The one thing, and a couple other organizations I'm in, we're discussing this, like how do we really reach people through social media? Because I don't know how many people receive I mean, if they haven't friended the department through social media, do they actually see it? And I'm wondering if we can take advantage of maybe some paid ways of getting out through social media. I don't know if our communications department has looked into that for the township as a whole, but, and I don't know the rules, but if you could actually take some budget money and put it into an advertisement, what could be deemed as an advertisement or some kind of paid method of reaching people in our community.
Actually, that's a great idea. That branding strategy that you're describing, I mean, is something definitely that we want to try and maximize. One way that we were going to try and do that the long way was we recently, and I know that you guys must know this, I think the chief might have mentioned this too, but every time that you call 911 in the township now and we come perform a rescue or do something, you'll get a text message that talks about service level and how did you feel the service level went?
Oh, that's
And it
nice.
redirects them to the township website, which then, and to Facebook. So I agree with you that that strategy is probably really a great idea. We're already trying to come up with a way to do that because we want to try and do exactly what you just described. The only problem is I don't have any feedback yet to say whether or not it's working.
Yeah.
We don't know. Even the township website doesn't really have a great feedback on how many people visit the site.
Yeah, I'd be interested, not just for the fire department, but just as a whole. What % do we think we're reaching in our community? 100,000 people, how many are on social media? I don't know, but, okay. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, overall, I'm very pleased and, I think, the last question I had was, and you didn't bring it and you didn't, I don't know if you can remember, but when was the last time you did one of these?
It was exactly 5 years. It ended
5 years.
at the end of '23.
Are you cognizant of what you've added and what you've removed? Like, how has it changed from 5 years ago?
Management of physical resources and all those parts that are in that those are like foundational strategic plan documents. So a lot of that stuff was in the old plan, things we wanted to carry on. A lot of the communication stuff was not in there. Having said that, though, this pathway to success document isn't like completely brand new to us. We do fill out something like this every year, even for the last 5 years, that talks about where we were. Here's a good example is in the last strategic plan, we were really looking at community paramedicine as a viable way to reach out to the public, one single man unit working in unison with the hospital, follows up with people after they may have been hospitalized. Our EMS runs. All these were great ideas, but environmentally for us, the pandemic hurt it, and also there was no funding source for many hospitals. There's no protocols. There's some pilot programs out there that are still working, but for us, it just didn't materialize. And then we looked at it during this time, and it's not in the we don't think it's going to move us ahead. We'd rather focus on what's here right now, which is, again, a lot of extended care.
Okay, I
facilities,
guess
a lot of
that's what
those
some of these plans are for, what you want to try next to make things better.
Exactly.
So, okay, thank you very much.
And to narrow down even a little bit more, I'm not exactly sure, but I would say when we go through our past strategic plan, we accomplished just about 90% of everything that we had in there. Above what we planned, like starting this fire station, right? Fourth fire station. We were just supposed to be looking at it, and we've already started and got funding for it and all kinds of things thanks to you guys.
I too was on it, and a lot of great conversation with the residents. One thing I was surprised, and you did talk to them about, were the different programs that the fire department offers. And so I think communication, you're ramping things up with the Facebook. I know I share a lot. We all should be sharing a lot so other folks can see it. But you guys are doing a great job, and I just thought this was really a good conversation we had.
Thank you. This is a great document. I can tell a lot of work and thought went into it. Typically, I hate strategic plans. We went through our strategic planning process at work a year ago, and I always say that people put all of this time and energy into building great documents and visions for the future, but I love the fact that you talked about like the report card and judging yourselves on a yearly basis to make sure that you are hitting your goals and assessing where you are on the plan. So I think that is really great. I don't want to repeat a lot of what's been said, but I completely agree with Kate. People in this community love our fire department, love what you do for the community. And, I know you have the map in here with the response times. And, I think, showing that to people and showing like how that changes with the new fire station and bringing on additional firefighters will really step up the already amazing service that you are able to provide to our residents. So congratulations on a great job, and look forward to supporting this and seeing the outcomes.
Well, thank you very much. I like that. It's interesting because I was reading some of the opportunities and threats and weaknesses, and I see that already we're going to be having an award ceremony again
That's right.
for the firefighters. So that's something to look forward to too. I know they're happy about that, and I think that's going to be a big add to this. But great job. I know I looked at this a couple weeks ago, and you guys did a good job, and so did all of the external stakeholders, and I'm glad to see that you listed them, the ones that helped you. I think that's really important too, so people can show that they've worked on this, and it shows that instead of just saying we've worked with them, you've listed their names.
We really appreciate them taking the time to put their input in for us. We couldn't do it without them, right? And that's like at the beginning when Jamie said we built this around the input of the community and the stakeholders, right? That's what we wanted. So other than that, it's just garbage that Jamie and I are putting together, it doesn't really mean much, so.
Nobody wants that.
But, I mean, we learn a lot, right? We learn a lot through this, right? In this process, like, we think that everybody knows what we're doing. We think that, hey, we do all these programs and, when we sit down there and we're like, what do you mean you don't know that we do that? Everybody knows that we install smoke detectors. Everybody knows that we do, these programs, but they don't, right? And so we've really made an effort of trying to get some stuff into the focus and make sure that we started up the fire department Facebook page, right? So trying to get that message out there as best we can. And we're going to continue to work on that. As much as the community loves this fire department, we truly love working for this fire department. And we do believe that we have the best firefighters and the best personnel working for us. Support from you guys, so we can't thank you enough.
Right, even like the CPR program. I mean, everybody knows that. And look at the young man that was in the Observer not too long ago. I mean, that was saved. Those are our staff members that did that, and the lifeguards ran over, and then our staff came. So that just showed how everybody worked together who was trained, and training is important. So thank you. Kate?
Yeah, sorry, back to me. But Stephen's comments made me think of this. Do you get any kind of feedback from Emma Kramer or IndyGov?
No, we're not currently, but it's in there. We're going to use it.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good. And then hopefully my final question is, what is the current count of ducklings saved?
Erica?
What?
This is Erica's.
No, I think Redshif's. I
And
think
it
Redshift's still in the lead.
Redshift is in the lead or Green Shift?
Yeah.
By far, yes.
Okay,
We thought maybe they were like trying to change the numbers on us or something like that somehow.
yeah,
But
yeah, I
just
know,
taking
one of them
pictures
was way.
from different angles.
Watch the one today, the post today.
I saw that, it was so cute.
Yeah.
He had a little
Walking.
visitor.
Right.
Joe, you're the only one that hasn't said anything.
Oh, yeah. Chris, I'm wondering, and Jamie too, talk a little bit about where the department's at with staffing and kind of what the plan is for that over the next year to 2 years to staff up for the fourth fire station.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So prior to our settling of the contract, we were 11 personnel down. And since that time, we've given 2 job offers in the past 2 weeks. And we have 7 interviews scheduled for next Thursday.
Yeah, 12 interviews over 2 days.
12 interviews over 2 days. So, like I said, it's already making a big difference, right? So once we bring that staffing up, and we're going to stagger that staffing as we move forward because we can't really train 11 personnel at one time. So we're going to stagger that. We're working with HR and Rochelle to stagger that. So we're hoping to get 6 great applicants out of this first pool here, bring them on board, train them up, and then go back out for the remainder. And then over the next year, we applied for a SAFER grant. So for another 12 personnel, and if that comes to fruition, then we will have the salaries paid for the next 2 years for those personnel, 2.5 years, the way that it kind of works out. And that'll give us the ability to hire another additional 12 firefighters under that staffing model. And then as we asked for in this document, we're looking for an EMS coordinator as well. As we start building this fire department larger and larger with the extra station, we know that EMS calls are our big output, right? 90% of our calls. So we have to have somebody that's making sure they're staying on top of the training for all of the paramedics, as well as the fire training, as we already have an a training coordinator, a training chief, right? So we'll kind of split those jobs into fire and EMS so that we're covering all the state rules and stuff. So with all reality, I would say we'll probably try to start hiring those personnel for that station 6 to 8 months prior to it being completed would be my goal.
All right, any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Good presentation. Very thorough, as you can see. Didn't have a lot of questions. Okay, any comments on anything else? No? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn then? Motion Made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Treasurer Slavens. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.